You're listening to Symposium, a year-round conference in the arts, brought to you by Pipeline Artists.
Welcome to our one-on-one symposium with Victoria Strauss. Victoria is the author of 9 novels for adults and young adults, including The Land of, is it Arata or Arata?
Arata.
Arata. Arata.
It's fantasy, so you can say it however you want.
Thank you. Which is an epic fantasy duology, and the 2 titles in that are The Burning Land and The Awakened City, and also a pair of historical novels for teens, Passion Blue and Color Song. In addition, she's written a handful of short stories, hundreds of book reviews, and a number of articles on writing and publishing that have appeared in Writer's Digest, among others. In 2006, she served as a judge for the World Fantasy Awards. She's also co-founder with Anne Crispin of Writer Beware, a publishing industry watchdog group sponsored by the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association that provides information and warnings about the many scams and schemes that threaten writers. She received the Service to Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Association Award in 2009 for her work with Writer Beware. So, first of all, so excited. I remember when I first found out about Writer Beware, I was like, there's someone who does this? So, like, how did you, how did you guys you and Anne get started on Writer Beware? Like, where did it come from? And I'm assuming the two of you were in the WA together?
We say SIFWA.
SIFWA.
SIFWA. Yes, we both were. I really started to go online in a big way in the late 1990s, which I know is dating myself. And I joined a bunch of writers groups, and I saw these stories about predatory vanity publishers, fee charging literary agents, and which were the dominant kind of scams back then. And, I had a very smooth path with my own publishing journey, and I had no idea that this kind of shady underbelly existed. And I got interested in, the types of scams and the psychology of scammers. Around the same time, I joined SIFWA, and they were looking for someone to create a page of warnings about writing scams. So I volunteered, and I was then introduced to Anne Crispin, who at the time was VP at SIFWA, and she was working on establishing a writing scams committee to make it more official that, to educate and advocate for writers to help educate them about scams. So we joined forces, and that original page of warnings became the Writer Beware website, which is now a really big website. It's got sections on literary agents, small presses, self-publishing, vanity publishers. Anne and I began to blog, I think, in around 2005. The blog has been going since 2005. And she sadly passed away in 2013. So, I continued on with the work that we both started doing.
Somebody also said, I just saw in the chat, I got an email on Penguin Random letterhead, supposedly from Sandhu Dillon, followed up by a telephone call from her wanting to acquire rights to my self-published historical fiction novel. It's obviously a scam. I've had numerous emails from supposedly film and TV production companies, obviously all scams. And that's actually how you and I met, because you had been investigating this and for looking for somebody in this space who might give some insights to it. So I would imagine that the so many novelists wanting their books to become film, that this is pretty common.
It is, and just on a broader basis, impersonation scams are super common right now. It's not just film companies, but publishers, like the question we just got, literary agencies, editors, bookstores, the list goes on. I have a whole page on the Write Everywhere blog, which lists the most frequently impersonated people and companies. It's called the impersonation list, and there's a link in the top menu. But I get a lot of email from writers, and I would say every single day I hear from several writers who've been approached by someone impersonating an industry person or a production company. And, the thing I always say is that these people, publishers, literary agencies, movie companies, they just don't directly contact writers to offer deals. I mean, you can't say never, but it is extremely rare. For scammers, on the other hand, this kind of direct solicitation is the main way that they acquire customers. So anytime you get an out of the blue email or phone call, you're really safest if you assume it's a scam and then maybe look into it and see what you can find out. You can always email me at beware@sfwa.org. If I've heard about a scam, I will tell you about it. I've also seen so many of them that I could recognize them at a glance. So even if I haven't heard about the company or whatever, I could usually give you an idea of whether or not it's legit.
One of the things I'm so amazed at when I go to your site is how in depth you go into your research on them. Like, you have a team, I'm assuming it's not just you. I think I've seen on the site there are a few people who are members of your team. Like, and you guys don't get paid. This is volunteer. I can't, like, how much time does it take you to do this one exploration of this one company? I mean, it's so detailed. It's incredibly impressive.
It needs to be because we need to insulate ourselves against legal challenges. So it's really important to have the documentation and to confirm everything. I don't write about anything or warn about anything unless I have documentation in hand. There's no hearsay or rumor. It's all documented things that I've collected, and I enjoy the research process. I enjoy going down the bizarre rabbit holes. I especially like the really weird stuff, of which there is quite a bit, and just having somebody ask me about a scam and then tracing it back to the source. It's really interesting. And, the information is out there for people to see and to find. So the educational component is important too.
It's almost like you guys are like a little private eye group, you know, and you're just investigative reporting, and it's really such an incredible service that you're doing. It's incredible. When you were talking about some of the crazy stuff, what's maybe some of like the craziest scam that you were like, wow, I can't believe someone came up with it.
Well, this is an old one, but we started getting complaints about a literary agent who was charging fees for editing, which is a conflict of interest. And then she decided to set up a conference, and she was taking money from authors to attend the conference. And she even contacted me and Anne and offered to have us come in as speakers. I mean, we knew she was scamming people and she knew that we knew, so she was trolling us. But anyway, she skipped town, taking all the conference money with her. Of course, there was never any conference. And her assistant, who probably was not a real person, sent out this announcement saying that she'd been killed in a tragic car accident. So, okay, well, she was dead. So a few months later, the exact same scheme pops up in Canada. And I had written about some of this. The information was online, and I was contacted by someone from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. And it turned out that this was the same person. She had reanimated and done the exact same scheme. She skipped town but was arrested. It turned out that she was wanted in Arkansas for attempted murder. She had tried to kill her mother by crushing her with a car and also passing bad checks. And her career as a literary agent, which is how we first heard about her, was her escaping to a different state, changing her name, and attempting to dodge these active warrants that were out for her arrest. So,
Oh my gosh.
there's more to the story. She pretended to have a psychotic break and to be incapable of standing trial. And then she tried to self-publish a memoir about her experiences. And she actually sent out queries to agents for this memoir. I mean, that is one of the craziest, not the only one, but definitely one of the crazier ones.
I'm surprised. Maybe one of those book to movie scammers didn't call her to make it into a movie.
But this was actually years ago, before this kind of tsunami of book to movie scammers. So, this was low tech scamming.
Yeah, I did run across a screenwriting contest once that I used to work at Script Magazine, and somebody had cloned our contest and kept the same title for the contest, which we had stopped doing. I just happened to stumble on it. I don't even know how I found it. And when you read through the whole thing, they changed the logo, but when you read through the whole thing, it had all the same exact prizes that we had given the year before, like all that stuff. It was a total clone, but then it says at the bottom, we reserve the right not to pick a winner. I was like, I call up the CEO of my company, and I'm like, we got a problem. And like, we immediately got our lawyers on it and got them to take it down because it looked like it was us, like it was, and it wasn't us. It was crazy.
It's amazing the kind of elaborate efforts that some of these scammers go to.
Yeah. And I feel like if they took all that energy that they're using to come up with these things and actually came up with something legit, like they could probably make honest money with less stress on their end. But it's nuts. And I wonder with AI, like if you see more of an increase of it because they can do like a mass, search of people and books. And I don't know. I don't know if you think AI is gonna increase the scams or if it won't have any effect on it at all.
I think it helps to make them more deceptive because a lot of the scams now come from overseas, where they have kind of boiler rooms for these scam companies with sales reps who, make the calls and send out emails soliciting people. And, they're based in the Philippines or Pakistan or India, where
Mm-hmm.
people are fluent in spoken English, but not necessarily as capable in written English. So one of the markers for these scams used to be grammatical errors in emails
Mm-hmm.
on websites. But as soon as ChatGPT was released, that started to change. So now it's almost that used to be a marker. It's almost non-existent now. You get these very formal business, well-written emails that seem as if they're coming from, completely fluent English
Mm.
language writers. And that's, one way that AI has helped to make scams more effective. I imagine it also helps the scammers find people
Mm.
and target people. And they use automated programs that generate fake phone numbers.
Yeah.
And so it's like an industry.
Yeah. Like you see a phone number come in and some phones say scam likely or whatever, but sometimes I'll get a phone call and it'll say it's from my town, like from, and it's not. Like, I'll answer the phone
Right.
and be like, yeah, I don't know who this is not from my town. Yeah, it's crazy. Um, Mark's asking about your opinion on contests and what's the best way to vet a contest to ensure that it's legit.
By contact, meaning somebody who reaches out.
No, contests like writing contests.
Oh, contest. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Um,
I might not have said it clearly.
so, contrary to what a lot of people say, in my opinion, an entry fee is not disqualifying for a contest. There are people who say never enter a contest that charges a fee, but plenty of legitimate contests charge smallish fees to help with costs or help fund the prize. Um, if the fee is exorbitant, like if it's more than $100 for a novel writing contest, that's probably an indication that it's a for-profit contest where the aim is for the sponsor to make money. Um, Other markers of a questionable contest include merchandise for sale, or you have to buy the trophy, or the judges are not named. You really want to see who's judging because that has a lot to do with whether or not the contest has any prestige or name recognition. Guidelines, reading the rules and guidelines is important. Watch out for rights grabs, copyright transfers, things like that. I've written a lot of blog posts about contests, and there's a category on the blog that you can click on and see all my posts where I discuss guidelines and what to watch for.
Yeah, that's always great because I mean, as people know, we run contests on our site. And when people ask me about different contests, and I'm a writer too, I've entered a bunch of them over the years. And I also agree with everything you're saying. The other thing that I've discovered that I started doing towards the end of the time of my entering contests is I would look to see where they would publish the winners, the finalists, maybe the runners up. And I would reach out to them on social media because writers are very approachable and they want to help each other. We're a big community. And I'd be like, hey, I see that you did really well in that contest. Congratulations. What was your experience like? What did they do for you? Did they deliver what they said they were going to deliver? That kind of stuff. And there's also, somebody asked me why our contests aren't free and why, a lot of contests aren't. Because we actually, for us, I can only speak for us, we pay our readers rather. So we like to pay them. Some places don't. They might have a group of volunteers reading. They might, they don't pay their readers, whatever. So there's different reasons for fees. But I found that reaching out to past winners is the most authentic, honest way. And when you think about, like when I was entering screenwriting contests and I would think about which contest do I want to enter, it would also depend on the prize, like if it was money, I don't really, not that nobody wants money, but I didn't really care because that's not going to help my career. It's like I want to get in I'd rather have a introduction to somebody. So think about that too. Like, is the prize even worth something to you in terms of your career? Um, because there's lots of different
there are a
things.
lot of kind of marginal contests where the prizes are a digital certificate or something, something that costs the sponsor nothing and
Right.
really isn't worth very much except to the recipient. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Another marker for questionable contests is like a gazillion entry categories,
Mhm.
because profit-making contests want as many entries as possible. So they have this huge proliferation of entry categories where they can get people entering in every kind of subcategory of writing you can imagine, just to
Mhm.
maximize entry fees.
Yeah. It's a whole other world, and it's always good to just do a little bit of research and think about how it might advance your career. We actually just wrapped up our book pipeline judging, and my eyeballs were falling out of my head yesterday because I participate in that. And we're very excited. We've got some great ones coming out, so we'll be announcing that. I'm not sure if we're going to announce it tomorrow, maybe the 15th. So we'll be announcing the winners on the 15th. We're excited about that. So, but if anybody have any questions about contests in the future, you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to discuss it. And I'm very impartial because I'm a writer too. And I've entered a lot myself.
And on
Um,
the Writer website, as distinct from the blog, has a detail section on contests with,
okay.
recommendations, cautions, and links to resources to help you find legitimate contests. Because there are some good sites that list um,
Yeah.
contests.
I'm making notes, people. So I'm going to put all these links in your thing for you.
I I
Um,
should I should say a lot of people think that Writer Beware is just the blog because that's really our most high profile um, offering. It's at writerbeware.blog, but we are also a website, and the blog kind of covers scams in real time. The website is more of a general resource, what to watch for, what good and bad
mhm.
business practice is. So that's writeaware.com.
Okay.
And so that's a place to go for general information.
Yeah. It's fantastic. You can go down a rabbit hole on that site and be there like all day. So bring a snack when you go. Um, so somebody asked if any of your books have been made into movies.
No, I wish. And you know what? I have never gotten one of those email solicitations either. Nobody has ever reached out to tell me that they want to pay me $500,000 for the movie rights. Such a
Oh
shame.
my gosh. So, like, can you describe what that standard offering is that they when they reach out? I know there was one I think that I had read on your site when I wrote that piece for you about book to film, where they reached out, wanted them to give them some money to create a they were, but don't worry, we're going to split the cost with you for a sizzle reel and a screenplay, and then it was like there was always another little hook that they would pull them in. So like that
Yes.
classic like book to film scam that is currently happening. If maybe you could just do a quick description of that so people know what to watch for.
Sure. So the scammer reaches out with an email or a phone call, praises your book, which they discovered in some way that they usually aren't very specific about. Um, they say that it's perfect for the silver screen, and they really want to make all your movie dreams come true. Um, and all you have to do is buy a screenplay or buy a cinematic trailer or buy a pitch deck. There's always a money ask, but it may come after the initial contact and you may be referred to a company by a different name, which is actually an arm of the original scam. And then and like you say, sometimes they offer to discount the cost or to pay half the cost. And it sounds like you're getting a deal, but of course you're not. So often they do deliver on what you first purchase. So I think I know the post you're talking about, and the writer paid for a screenplay, and they did produce a screenplay, and it wasn't bad, it was okay. So the writer thought, this reassured the writer that they were actually legit because he got something for the money and they did what they promised. But of course, the next thing was they contact him and say, we have these other wonderful opportunities for you, but you need more. You need a pitch deck, you need a sizzle reel, you need all of these things to really be sure that you're interesting to a production company. So the writer, who has been kind of lured by the screenplay and reassured, decides to buy in. Next thing you know, he's getting an email from Netflix. They are very interested in the material that's been shared with them by the scammer, and they want to do a deal, but he has to purchase this additional thing. And at this point, a lot of people wake up, or they wake up before that. But at this point, this particular writer woke up and thought, hey, every time something happens, they're asking me for money. And they contacted me, and I had gotten complaints about the same scam. So I had to tell this person that they had spent, multiple thousands of dollars for nothing, essentially, which is one of the worst aspects of what I do, is telling people that they've been ripped off. And this writer was eventually able to get most of their money back by disputing the charges with their credit card company, which is an important thing to note. Always, if you're going to pay by credit card, never do wire transfer or Zelle or Venmo, which more and more scammers are demanding, because those transactions can't be reversed. So once you do that, your money is gone forever.
Or gift cards.
Or yes. Or PayPal, and you do it as friends and family, and then you can't get a reimbursement. Yeah, they know how to work all the angles.
Can you talk a little bit more about having that conversation with a writer when you have to deliver that news and I can't even imagine. That's so heartbreaking. And how some of these writers take it. They must be so nervous and all the red flags going off for them to approach you in the first place. But then there's probably a part of them that's thinking, okay, but Victoria's going to tell me that everything's okay.
No, I don't think anybody contacts me with that thought. I think anyone who contacts me is already in their gut pretty sure of what the deal is. So, often I very rarely get someone who's angry or who tells me that I'm wrong. And every now and then I get a reaction like that. But for the most part, I think it's something that the person already knows, which has led them to contact me. Or they did a Google search and they found one of my blog posts, so they've seen it right there. I really try to be empathetic and sympathetic, tell them not to beat themselves up. I think people often feel very ashamed and they say, I feel so stupid for falling for this. And, if you do fall for something like this, you shouldn't beat yourself up, because the whole thing is designed to to trick you, and very effectively. And you're not alone. I mean, I hear every day from multiple authors who've been lured into a scam, and it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And smart people, elite people, ordinary people. I mean, it runs the gamut from um, just hobby writers who've fallen into a scam accidentally to, I heard from the CEO of a company who had been ripped off by a vanity publisher. So it runs the gamut for all kinds of
Yeah.
people.
And
And
I think we're so vulnerable as writers and any kind of artist because it's it's our passion, it's our dream, and you desperately, when somebody's telling you something flattering about your work, you somebody read it and loved it, and they want to make a movie of it. I mean, it's a perfectly natural
yeah,
um, way to feel and to want to believe it. And now, like when you were talking about this man who spent money on the script, now with AI, they could dump in your book and a script probably spit a script out in 30 minutes or 2 minutes. I don't know. I don't use AI, so I don't know, but I know it's pretty quick. And sometimes it's like, okay, they must have read the story. Like it's the story.
yeah. And I see book reviews that people have paid for that were obviously
Mm,
written by AI. And also I think if you've been querying for a long time and without success, or if you self-published and you're not getting many sales, or if you used a publisher who isn't supporting your work, um, it's writers are also frustrated and disappointed, and getting what seems like validation and praise is very, very, very hard to resist, I think, a lot of the time. I mean,
yeah.
I think scammers really know how to push the buttons. They really have a good grasp of the psychology of their victims, and they really play on that. I see that all the time.
Yeah. Which is absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, it's hard enough in this industry to even get a book published, and then when something like this happens, it's absolutely heartbreaking. Somebody asks for money, a scam. Is there any legitimate writing opportunities that would ask for money? I know my answer to
Um,
this, but I want yours.
I would say most of the time no, but you can't say never. There are certain hybrid publishers like She Writes
Mm,
Press, which charge very large fees but add a lot of value. Um,
hmm.
but you really have to have the cash to spare because that is costly. I would say that anytime you're asked for money for a writing opportunity, you should be very, very wary because it is far more likely to be illegitimate than legitimate.
Yeah, I agree. And unless you're hiring somebody, like you're hiring an editor to help you, and She Writes is kind of
Right,
like you're hiring them to help you self-publish your book,
right.
and
Or hiring a publicist, or
right.
if you're self-publishing, you want to make some financial investment there. So it's not like there should never be, money should always flow to the writer. Sometimes you do have to expend money, but just for writing opportunity or for publication, a money demand is definitely a caution sign.
Yeah. Like if you're writing, like if you have a book and you have a friend who's a screenwriter and you say to them, "Hey, do you want to adapt my book?" In that circumstance like that, you know them. If you do decide to pay them to do it, fine. But I personally wouldn't. I would ask them to do it on spec because you have no idea if you're ever going to sell this. The odds of selling it are very slim. But they might want the experience of, hey, I've never adapted a book before. I'd like to try it. I can put it in my portfolio. I can have it as one of my, something in my wheelhouse. Yes, I have adapted a book. When they go to pitch an agent, I know how to do it. It could be one of the writing samples they give a manager to get repped. Then the manager might say, "Oh, this is a great story. What's this book?" I mean, you never know. But the money aspect, I think, is something that, I agree. It's very difficult. And then also too, if you pay them, who owns the script? Do you own the script? Like, you should own the script. It makes it very complicated. And I actually talk about that in the article I wrote for Victoria's site. So I'll link to that. So if you're curious, you can go look at that. So Eva was up wanting to know, like, what is the most prolific scam right now? Do you think it is that book to film thing that's happening right now? That's the most thing you've come across, or are there other things that you're coming across and seeing more of?
I would say the book to film thing is one of the most common. There are also a lot of ghostwriting scams. They
Mm,
offer publishing and PR services, but they focus on ghostwriting. It's always prominent on their websites. I'm hearing from a lot of writers who've been ripped off by those. It's the same kind of story. They take money for a service, they deliver something, but then there are more and more money demands, and things don't get delivered, and eventually they just vanish. And maybe they did publish the writer's book, and it's up there on Amazon. That they have no control of it over it because they have no one to contact,
mm,
and they are never given royalty payments or sales reports. Republishing scams, these mostly target self-published authors. And again, by solicitation, offering to republish your book, uh, somehow to make it better, give it a better cover, sell it at a better price, maybe do some more PR for it. Again, they deliver initially, but then, they just ask for more and more money, and eventually they ghost you. I would say, and then the imposter scams, all of the scams where the scammer is impersonating a literary agent or a publisher or a movie company. Um, and all of these scams that I just described are coming from overseas. They are all based outside the United States, which makes them very, very difficult to pursue or even to trace back to the source.
mm,
It makes it very difficult to recover money. And like I said, they're like these boiler rooms, and if one company gets too many complaints, or if it gets exposed on Writer Beware, they can shut down the name in the morning, and then be out
yeah.
again in business in the afternoon under a different name. So I host this list on my blog of overseas scams. And if you look at it, it's incredibly long because of this constant shutting down of names and establishing new ones. Um, these proliferating scam names run
Mm,
by the same people but under different names.
yeah.
Um,
It's like
and
playing whack-a-mole.
and then there are these scams that have always existed, like predatory vanity publishers. Not so many literary agent scams as there used to be. Fee charging literary agents used to be one of the main scam categories back in the day, but now that so many people are self-publishing or using small publishers that don't require agents, it's not that lucrative to be a scam agent anymore. So there really aren't that many of them.
And I think maybe writers are, it's interesting now that there's the internet and there's social media, and a lot of writers are in Facebook groups or whatever. I feel like the literary agent asking to be paid, that scam, I feel like has been exposed so much, and people are so onto it. And that probably do you think that has lessened because it wasn't so much when you first started this that there
Yeah,
was all
that's
this social
true. That's
media.
true. No, I think that's true. I think it's become very widely known. I think, the dangers of vanity publishing also are more widely known. And that definitely has helped to make it less lucrative to scam in those areas. Most scams these days really focus on self-published authors.
Mm. Yeah, why do you think? Well, I guess they don't. Most of them don't have
Well,
agents, so no one to
because
protect them.
self-published authors consume services more than traditionally published authors. I mean, if
Hmm.
you're going to self-publish, you're going to want to hire a cover designer, an
Yeah.
editor, maybe PR, you figure out, what platform to publish on. So there are a lot more kind of connection points for
Hmm.
scams. Um,
Yeah.
but everybody's a target, really.
Yeah. And there's no agent to protect you, and no publisher to protect you. I mean, the publisher would have, they're going to have their own book to film agent. So if somebody was interested in your book, they should legitimately contact them, not you. So yeah, there's a little more safeguards in place in traditional publishing. I don't think you know the answer to this question because these are all screenwriting sites. Stage 32, Roadmap Writers, Virtual Pitch Fest. And if you had thoughts on them, those are screenwriting sites. I can tell you they've all been in business for a while. Those are not scam sites, those are actual businesses. Um, and it just depends what you're looking for. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all, Victoria.
I occasionally I get a question and I don't feel, it's sort of out of my wheelhouse, which is why I asked you to write that. Because I'm mostly focused on book publishing. So, I do occasionally hear there are a couple of screenwriting services. Actually, there's one recently that has been soliciting members of the Authors Guild and charging very large fees with what I've been told is kind of a questionable contract and agreement.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say it's a scam because the people who are doing this are credentialed, and I imagine that they would actually deliver a screenplay, but they provide very little information. They claim success, provide no verification of that, and they are soliciting people in kind
Hmm.
of a questionable way. So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, very few people have $30,000 lying around. So
No, very few people have that. It's definitely I don't. Like it's laying around. If I said to my husband, I'd like $30,000 to put towards it, he would stop me right then. Like, yeah, I don't think so. Um, so somebody asked, I also do technical writing, and I got a text from a company that is one word different from a legit company. They tried to get me to use WhatsApp of all things to review offers. Yeah, I'm sure WhatsApp probably is another red flag.
WhatsApp and Telegram also. There are some
Hmm.
scams that do interviews on Telegram. Actually, some scammers, probably the same outfit, have been impersonating a number of streaming video services.
Hmm.
DM writers on social media say, we've got a great writing opportunity for you. It's going to pay you some incredible amount of money. All you need to do is interview with us on Telegram. And the aim is to get personal information, social security
Mm.
number, bank accounts, things like that.
Oh
So it's
my
basically
God.
a phishing scam.
Technology is wonderful, but it's also terrible. It has definitely opened all of us up to a lot more
Yes.
vulnerability for sure. And somebody asked, I would love to hear about the work you do in exposing publishers for not paying, sometimes for years.
That is completely based on writers contacting me, which is why it's so important. If you're experiencing trouble with publisher, reach out to me, because otherwise, publishing is such a secretive industry, and people don't talk about money more than they used to, but not very much. And often there are, I find out about publishers that aren't paying or doing other things that are not optimal after it's been going on for a very long time. It often takes writers a very long time to speak out.
Mm,
So usually I find out about these things by emails, and I ask them to pass on my email address so I can hear from more authors. I ask for documentation to be sure, that anything that I might say
mm,
publicly is supported by documentation. And I've written a lot of posts over the years about publishers that are doing various bad things. I
mm.
think most recently, one of the most recent was Touchpoint Press, which actually now is out of business. But the owner she was having, you can never be sure. She was claiming that she had health problems. I'm always a little bit skeptical because it's such a convenient
Mm.
excuse. But she was basically contracting books and then sitting on the rights and never
Ugh.
publishing. And added to that were payment issues. She wasn't paying authors, she wasn't paying staff. So I started getting emails from writers, and I wrote a blog post, and then I got a deluge of emails from writers who had been
Wow.
affected. And I didn't realize how long-standing those problems were, because they've been going on
Mm,
for years. So, if there are problems with your publisher, don't be silent. You might not want to speak out publicly, but Writer Beware is always there for you to contact and tell me about the issues. And
yeah,
if I can gather enough information, I'll do an expose.
that's
But
great.
I
And it,
can't always. Sometimes I
mhm,
hear about a situation and I just can't gather enough information, because
mhm,
Um, I wish this weren't the case, but I have to be cognizant of legal liability. And, I have to be a little bit careful. Right Everywhere has been sued several times. Uh,
yeah.
I'm not eager to repeat that experience.
No, and suing you is probably just another way to get more money. Like, it,
Well, I think it's mostly a way of trying to
yeah,
shut up,
yeah, yeah,
shut us
absolutely.
up, and put us out of
Yeah,
business.
yeah. And also, too, there might be sometimes somebody reaches out to you and maybe it's just an isolated incident and it wasn't something systemic.
Yes. And it can be hard to tell if something is just a glitch or an isolated incident, or if it's a pattern, which is why I always ask for multiple reports. I would never go out on a limb and post a warning based on a single report. Actually, on our About Us pages on the blog and website, we have an explanation of how we kind of evaluate and categorize complaints.
Um, Here's a question. Do you have any idea like how many, and have you had anybody ask you to expose this or dive into this? And I'm not sure how you didn't find out, but how many contests might be like, or publishers running submissions through like training AI? So like, the slush pile or the contest entries. I mean, I'm sure that might be something that certainly people are concerned about, that there's not an actual human reading that slush pile or reading the contest submissions.
I have seen, and I'm receiving a lot of expressions of concern about that, but it's so hard to prove.
Mm.
I just got a couple of complaints about a publisher that's using AI for covers without acknowledging this fact. It's not that I trust the writers to know, but I don't know. This is not
Yeah.
an area where I'm an
Yeah.
expert. So I I feel like it's such a new thing, and people are so secretive about it because there's such a negative view of AI. So I think the people who are doing it are tend to try and keep it under wraps.
Mm.
So I am sure that it's much more prevalent than anybody realizes, but it's very hard to know at this point. What I am seeing is more small press contracts with AI clauses in them,
Mm.
both prohibiting the use of AI by the authors and indicating that the publisher will not allow the use of their material for AI training.
Yeah.
But that has leaped into contracts just in the past year or so.
Yeah. I can attest that we do not use AI, and you could tell if you go to that poster and see my bloodshot eyes. Yeah, it is something that's crazy. And it's, you do worry about it. So somebody was asking about, do you think it's wise to have your novel turned into a screenplay as a package offer just in case? Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah, why don't you? I'll chime in.
Um,
I have
yeah,
a
I
feeling
mean,
we're going
yeah,
to.
I do not think that you need that. Like if your novel is cinematic and would make a great movie, they they probably any production company, especially a big one, is going to probably want to hire their own screenwriter to adapt it. But if you have a vision for the screenplay for yourself, and you are also a screenwriter, a novelist, and a screenwriter, I would write them both, because then you're getting farther along the development process if it is to be picked up, that you already have a script for them to work off of. But I would not pay somebody to write the screenplay. That's my answer. What about you, Victoria? What would you do?
That's word for word. That's what I would have said. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
Good. Teamwork. Um, okay. And somebody wants to know about paying to pitch and what your thoughts are on that.
I take a dim view of that. I think it's exploitive. It's a way, wherever you are, the event where you're paying, I think it's a way for them to make money. I know what used to be the AAR used to prohibit agents from taking money for pitch sessions, but I don't know
Mm.
if they do that anymore. I haven't looked at the canon of ethics recently. I just think that it's something that it's a gamble. It's really paying for something that is extremely speculative that it might have any results. I would counsel against it, but there's no reason why not if you want to do it. It's not a scam.
Can I give the counter to that?
Sure.
It's like, okay, so as a writer, there used to be in screenwriting, there used to be this great event called the Great American Pitch Fest, and it was out in California. And you would go, there would be like 100, mostly producers, like smaller producers, it's always assistants. You're going to get in the screenwriting world, if you go to a pitching event, you're going to get the assistant, sometimes the assistant to the assistant. So, and 99.9% of the time, you are never going to sell your screenplay that way. But you learn how to pitch. So after years of doing this, and you meet people, you make connections, and then I would stay in touch with these agents or with these producers or development execs, and I would stay in touch with them over the years. And then sometimes they would move to another studio where that was bigger, and now they have a bigger position, and I would pitch them directly something. But then when I did get the big project, that I was able to go to the HBO offices and go to Imagine offices and go to Johnny Depp's office and actually pitch, I was so comfortable pitching because I had had that experience that it was incredible, the difference. And I walked in as a professional, like could speak and pitch and do it. So if you're going to do it in screenwriting, if you're going to do it as a learning experience, I would take it as that. I would not have any expectation of selling anything from it. And in the novel space, full disclosure, I used to work for Writer's Digest, but they have a pitch slam at their event. The writers do get a lot of requests for reads, and people have been absolutely discovered there. They didn't have it this year because they didn't have it in New York City, but again, it's also a way. Sometimes you're looking at all these agents and online, and you're trying to decide, who do I want to query? Well, when they're in front of you and you can actually look at them, you can tell if there's going to be like an immediate chemistry, or if it's just like, oh yeah, no, I don't want to pitch that person, you know. But also it gives you a way to kind of test your concept, and it's face to face. So you can pitch your idea and they'd be like, oh, well, actually, this house is coming out with a book that's just like that. Like, I, can't take it, or it's too similar to something else I have. Or, you know what, I really like that concept, and then you can actually, for those 3 minutes that you get with the agent, you can have a dialogue. I've seen people come into a pitching event and not even have a book to pitch, but they just use the 3 minutes to each agent to just ask them questions to learn. Like, so there's lots of ways you could work it, but I would not pay for a pitching event with the expectation that I am absolutely going to sell my work or get repped from this. This is just, it's almost like taking a pitching class. Like if you're going to pay the money to take a pitching class.
I think that's a good caveat. I also think that's, another difference between the movie and the book business is that pitching is much less of a thing in the book business. And, I think, maybe you'll get a request from an agent that you pitch to submit your work, but you might have gotten that request if you just queried, which is free. So I take your point, but I still don't think it's a great use of money. And I think it's exploitive on the part of conventions and conferences that do it.
Yeah.
They often charge quite a lot.
Extra for that. Yeah. And it's also too, when you're going to that, it's not just the pitching event you're paying for. You got to pay for the hotel
if you're going to a pitching event and you pay to participate in the pitching event, and that's what you do. But if you're going to a writers' conference, you have to pay $125 extra to pitch. I think that's where the iffiness comes in for me.
Yeah, totally understood. Is it ethical for an agent to offer courses for pay to his client?
To a client? No.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, no. Many agents do have adjunct businesses, editing courses, whatever. But ideally, there should be a wall between those two sides of the business. Anyone who uses the editing service isn't eligible for representation, and clients never are urged to use whatever the paid service is. So, I can't say it doesn't happen, because it does, and I get reports of it periodically. In my opinion, it is not unethical for an agent to sell services outside of agenting, but in my opinion, it is unethical to sell those services to clients.
Yeah, I mean, like, a client should get freebies. Like, if you do those classes, there's probably recordings of them. Hey, you're my client. Here's a list of stuff I've taught. If you're interested in any of this, just let me know. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, exactly.
If I were an agent, that's what I would do. But I will never be an agent.
Nor would I, even though some people mistake me for one.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
I get queries. I get queries in manuscripts. I mean, would you really want to query someone whose email is beware? But they do.
I know people query me too. I don't know, they just, when they see people in the space, they do it. Um, so I want to just thank everybody for coming. We've been here an hour. Somebody was asking about writers or screenwriters meetups in New York City. If you go on the writer groups and stuff like that, sometimes people have them. Um, Danielle, shoot me an email. I just dropped my email address, and there's a group in New York City that meets up, and I can't on the top of my head remember what it is, but they do. They meet up at a bar. I don't know how often, if it's every month or every quarter or something, but New York City is a great place to connect with people. So thank you so much.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I want you guys to follow Victoria's on X, but she's also more active on Blue Sky. So I'll put all of those social handles in the recording email so you can follow her on social. And if there are any screenwriters in our group, I want to tell you about our next session that we have coming up. I think it's next week, the 19th. It's with, I don't know if you guys know who Bob Sines is, but he's has written a lot of Christmas movies for cable, and he's had, I think, now 20 movies produced. And he also wrote a YA book adapted from one of his screenplays. But he's teaching a session next week on Christmas for cable, writing cable network films. So that's going to be fun. And then, but in January, we have some really cool things coming up. Like Lee Jessup is teaching a screenwriting class. We're having Stacey Graham, who's a lit agent. She's going to talk about decoding literary agents. And then we have Tom Vaughn, who's also a professional screenwriter, teaching about elevating story concepts. So we've got some really good ones, and I think I've got us booked out until March already. So we've got a lot of good, cool things and a lot of free ones coming up too. So the free ones are always fun. And speaking of ghostwriters, next year I'm going to do a free one-on-one with a ghostwriter. So to tell people more about that, so they'll know the scams to watch out for.
Yes, that'll be helpful.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Victoria. Really appreciate it. And thank all of you for coming.
Thanks so much for having me.
Symposium is brought to you by Pipeline Artists, a division of Pipeline Media Group. To learn more about upcoming live symposiums, visit symposium.pipelineartists.com and follow us on Twitter @PipelineArtists.